Well, hey guys, it's Dr. Drake 63 here today, and just a real quick quiz for you. It's not a right or wrong answer because you don't know the answers, but I'd like you to take a look at these three firearms right here that I shot all three of these at the range today. On top is the oldest out of the three. This is a 1926 Remington Model 8. This is its cousin, the Model 81, and it's from 1937. And at the very bottom is a Marlin. This is a 336, one of the first under that model designation. You see it's got that waffle top on it. Nothing drilled, nothing tapped, no safety. A great 30-30. These other two are in 35 Remington. So today, what I want to do is basically just give you a multiple choice quiz. We're going to talk about which one of these firearms was the most reliable in terms of feeding and ejecting, and which one of these firearms happens to be the most accurate. And these were tested at 50 and 100 yards, but I kind of had to disqualify this guy right here because the sight needs to be drifted. So Kentucky windage versus peep sights, not a fair comparison. So probably giving it away a little bit, but just want to go ahead and have you guys guess based on what we know about firearms, what we think we know about firearms, what we're supposed to know about firearms. So one thing we talked when we did this Model 8 review in our last video, we talked about dropping in the bolt from the 81 because there were such issues, which I'm going to go into in a second with this bolt. Not this bolt, but the bolt that came with this Model 8. And so what I did was I bought one that was, well on its way to being kind of rusted, and a lot of people probably wouldn't like it. I was able to clean it up fairly well. It's not quite as shiny and smooth as some of the nicer ones that I've seen. I guess I could keep working on that if that's important. But what I did do is work real hard in terms of retrofitting this particular one with the proper springs, with making sure that the ejector was fitting nicely, and I did some hand fitting with that and some other things. And so this is not the same bolt you saw yesterday when we were talking about dropping in the 81 and this gun functioned fine. It just didn't have a bolt hold open on the last shot, which now, by the way, it does. So this was my issue with the bolt that the 8 came with. Somebody did some Bubba gun work on it. It actually had cracking on it. So I was able to locate a Model 8 bolt carrier, not in the best of shape, as you can see, with rust and corrosion, but I was able to clean this up real nice using a wire brush and some things like that. But this is what we started with. Well, one would think that given the choice between two semi-auto loaders, or auto loaders as they were called in the day, given the choice between that and a lever action, that the lever action would hands down be the most reliable in terms of feeding, functioning, and so forth. Actually, this had a failure to load around in the magazine, and I'm not 100% sure if I just kind of short stroked it. I think since this is an older firearm, this particular one's from 1952, I probably needed to give this a really good cleaning on the internals, which I have not done. And so it's not really fair, but typically one would think that a lever action is going to be the most reliable. Probably the second thought that most of you are going to have is, well, this newer 1937 Model 81 that you've seen me shoot and get into fixing with deals with the magazine box spring and things like that. It's got to be the most reliable if you already just said you had an issue with failed to chamber around with your lever action. And that's not the case. Now, in fairness, I did try some new ammo today. Side by side with the Remington Core-Locked, I tried some of the hunting ammo, also 200 grain, which is made. by Winchester. This firearm does, for whatever reason, does not like the Winchester as much as the Remington. And the statistics on this stuff, guys, I mean, I think the Remington is maybe 20 feet per second more out of muzzle. I mean, it's just not a big difference. So not quite sure about that. It was a kind of a humid, sticky, and very much rainy day when I was out shooting. Maybe this old gal's a little bit finicky. So the next thought a lot of you are going to probably have is, well, gosh, this is your oldest of the three. You had this, what looked like a catastrophic bolt issue with it. How could this possibly be the reliable out of a newer semi-auto loader or a lever gun? But here's the truth. After about 20 rounds today with this girl right here of the core locked, and 4 or 6, I can't remember, of the Winchester ammo, also in 35 Remington, 0 failures to function at all. And as I mentioned when I was talking about the bolt of this gun, 0 issues with last round magazine hold open. So this particular firearm functioned exactly the way it was supposed to. And really the only small little change that needs to be made is this front sight. I need to drift that over to the left just a little bit. Other than that, nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I found that to be kind of interesting. I'm pleased. Out of these 3 firearms, this is by far my favorite. So there is that. In terms of accuracy, different story. By far, the most accurate firearm I had out there today was the Model 81. This is a 3-shot group at 100 yards using the Winchester 200 grain. Using these open peep sights. I wasn't leaning on anything. I was just sitting in a chair shooting. But I don't think it's a fair apples to apples comparison, because where the rest of them have buckhorn sights mounted, a good 5-6 inches up on the barrel past the receiver, this one's got all the way at the back. It's not tang mounted, but it's about as far. A very nice Williams peep sight. Okay, so you're basically talking about 15 more inches of sight radius with a more accurate type of a sight. So is it fair to say that that's more accurate than, say, this semi-auto loader or even the lever gun? Firearm itself, no. Firearm with this sighting system, it is for sure. So the question may be asked, your most accurate firearm out of the 3, your Model 81. Your most reliable in terms of feeding and function, your Model 8. Which one of these 3, because from a capacity standpoint, here you go, here you can load up a total of 7 rounds. The other 2 are really limited to about 4. Okay, so out of these 3, if you're in a, what do they call it, a stuff hits the fan situation, which one would you use to save your neck? And the answer is this guy right here, without a doubt. Modern firearm, I actually put every aspect of this together myself. Gas tube, picked out the barrel, all the springs, all the detents, picked out the triggers, got a nice drop in it. I can shoot this more accurately as well, even with iron sights, than any of these 3 firearms. And it'll put out 30 rounds, change out your mag, another 30, change out your mag. This thing will put out hundreds of rounds before it's too hot to handle, and it'll do it without any kind of feeding failures at all. So am I saying this to fly in the face of these older types of firearms? No, I'm not. I'm not one of these guys that just because I like older firearms and I like revolvers and stuff like that, that I think they're better than newer stuff. Given a choice between a 6-shooter and a Glock 19, I'm going to pick a Glock 19 in any self-defense situation, for example. But having said that, if I have to worry about large game, maybe a black bear running me down, well, I'd rather have 357 6 shots than any 9mm. So there is that. But I just thought it was kind of interesting. If you had guessed that the most reliable firearm out of the 3 that I showed you earlier was going to be this, I would have agreed with you. That's what I expected. If you would have said, hey, what's going to be the best function out of these 2 semi-auto loaders, I would have said probably the 81, just because I was using a brand new, untried bolt that had a lot of my own work on it. But guess what? I was wrong. It would have been this. So it just goes to show you, when you're talking about firearms, there's no guarantees. B, you never know what's going to work. And C, that's why we shoot them. It's fun. If you watch my channel, I'm not stuck on any particular genre, any particular type. I love firearms for hunting. I love firearms for self-defense. I love firearms for target practice. I think the common theme here is I just love firearms. Anyway, I appreciate you watching this short little, whatever you call it. This is Dr. Drake 63 saying thanks for watching. Take care, guys.